Hey guys, you are in bed with Kate, and Kate today is at Ride Love Rock, the place in Beverly Hills where you can get the sexiest beds that will always make you love more. And today we discuss another very important topic on this podcast that is gaining popularity all over the globe. And this topic is non-monogamy. Marriage rate is down and divorce rate is up. And more people recognize that exclusive relationships and exclusive sex isn't that important as they thought. Luckily, at least in the Western world, people are able to make these decisions for themselves. And now people more and more start to realize that there is no one size fits all for relationships. So 30% of people have already engaged in consensual non-monogamy. And even OkCupid study reported that 46% of respondents want to try non-monogamy. So all of this proves that we do need to bring awareness to this topic, because even New York Magazine came out with a cover that is all about non-monogamy. Today, we will dive into the wild world of non-monogamous relationships, and Ailey, the founders of Passport to Pleasure, is here to guide us and tell us everything she knows and everything she teaches other couples who want to open up or explore their sexuality in non-monogamous setup. Lovebirds, buckle up and prepare for the wild ride. Ailey, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I'm sure a lot of people have come across people who say that they are non-monogamous, and it's happening more and more often in the world we're living. So I'm very excited to find out more about you and to learn more about non-monogamy, about healthy non-monogamy. So please introduce yourself, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to have this conversation exactly for all the reasons that you said. So thank you for the introduction. I'm Iseman. I'm the founder of passporttopleasure.com, which is where I offer online courses, resources, private guidance through my framework called the Non-Monogamy Blueprint. And basically, I am bringing together all of my experience as a leader, educator, community organizer within the sex positive space, and my experience as an educator and practitioner of non-monogamy since 2016, all together into one place so people can have all the resources they need to explore alternative relationship dynamics safely and confidently. I wish I had existed when I started.
When you realize that this is something that you were looking for and you are here to offer it to people, that's very exciting, because I have never heard about the business that really guides people through these steps and through this lifestyle, because a lot of things can go wrong with non-monogamy.
With any relationship framework.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest with you, I found this whole concept very intriguing, because me being from conservative background, so I was born and raised in Russia, and then I moved to LA 6 years ago, right? So in Russia, it was so common that men had multiple relationships. They had a wife and a bunch of lovers, and then they would cheat and all of that, right? And I was thinking, when I was a teenager and I had my first boyfriend and I lost my virginity with him and I was together with him, and I was thinking, okay, he was really good at sex. He was really good at it.
That's very lucky.
Yeah, from the first try, the thing is that he was older, he was smarter, he was good at sex and everything. But the one thing that I couldn't really make peace with was that, how do I live with this one person with the same penis every day from the age of 15 years old until the rest of my life? Because that's what my parents, that's what society expected from me. But in Russia, it was not okay to say, okay, I'm sexually active woman, I love sex, I need more of it. It wasn't okay. So then I moved to California, right? And here I saw that it's all normal. In a normal civilized world, it's normal. You can just say, okay, this is my needs and this is what's going to happen and this is how it's going to work. I'm sure a lot depends on what is your like social background and what are the values in the society you are in. Like in places like New York, LA, Seattle, we have a huge non-monogamous community. So can you please share with us your experience with non-monogamy, and did this diversity around you influence you to experience it for the first time, or was it something that you just felt deep inside that you needed it?
Thank you. I think you'd make a good point. Yes, there is a lot more visibility, I would say, in major metropolitan cities, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't community elsewhere, right? Like you said, a third of the population has either already tried or is currently in some version of consensual non-monogamy. That's a lot of people. So for me, I didn't grow up in a city. I've always lived in or near a city, but I grew up in Maryland, or as I used to say, Merlin, like the wizard. I grew up in Maryland, and yeah, it was very much, this is the one relationship. This is the one kind of relationship that you do, and it's monogamy, and it looks like this, and it works this way, and this is, the relationship escalator of how you get there. And if it's not working for you, you're the problem. So luckily, in a sense, for me, I never really, at least my experience was, I never really felt like I fit in quite anywhere. I was friends with kind of everybody from every different group, but I never really had a home base. So feeling a bit outside of, the norm was normal for me. I kind of always existed on the peripheral in a lot of different ways. And for me, the journey really came about later in life. When I was younger, for some reason, I thought I'm going to wait for marriage before I have sex. I have no idea where that came from. I was not raised that way. It was not like a religious thing. I just got it in my mind, but that shows you how powerful cultural communication can be, right? I was not raised that way at home. And yet this idea was like, that sounds like, a goal worth having for literally no reason. So when I realized that was not a goal I wanted to have anymore, I was lucky enough to have a long-term boyfriend during college. We gave each other our flower. It was very sweet. And that began my, sexual life. But even before then, I was actually still a serial monogamist. I would go into the, monogamous relationship structure only with men at this time. I was still very closeted. And we would always be together for about the same amount of time. And we would break up, and then I'd be single for about the same amount of time again, before getting right back into a new relationship for about the same amount of time. So this was a pattern, right? And I never went through the cooties phase when I was a kid. There was no point at which I was like, no, thank you. It's like I came out going like, how do I put your face on my face? Like, let's do this. Like, super young. And my first kiss was like first grade French kiss. Like, it was great. But that was a pattern that I really saw later on in life, that, hey, I'm dating these people. It always lasts about the same amount of time. We're not super compatible. It starts like a match lights something and it explodes and it's amazing, and then it implodes. So let me see what happens if I break this pattern. Let me see what happens if I'm single for at least longer than the amount of time I was usually single for. So I did that, and long story long, that began my journey of personal self-development and really learning about myself and my needs and dropping into who I was and what I needed to feel fulfilled in a relationship. And that's when I started discovering that I had curiosities that were outside of, the perceived norm. I never really understood why jealousy was given such a bad rap. Like when I, learned about my partner's other, partners in the past, their fantasies, when they found someone attractive, oh my God, it turned me on. I got so excited. I didn't know that was something called compersion, which is kind of known as the opposite of jealousy. It's when you experience joy or pleasure from watching your partner with someone else or hearing about them with someone else. But for me, it was so exciting. So I was like, okay, is there a way to explore this? So got into a few more relationships, again, still monogamous, and tried to open up that way. Hey, can we bring somebody in? And they were like, hey, we can have a threesome with another woman. Never happened. And then I got into what became my last monogamous relationship. And this was a big shift for me. So this was a little further along. This was a slightly different dynamic in that it was another man that I was dating, but he was on the road very often for work, and I would join him when I could, but I wasn't always available. So I told him, hey, next time, if you meet somebody while you're traveling and I'm not with you, pursue it. Like, send me a picture. I want to know what's going on. But that's really exciting to me. Like, please enjoy, experience something, like adventure. And so at one point he did, and he sent me a picture. She was super cute. Apparently all they did was stay up all night talking. I think at a hotel bar, that's great. I love it. And then another time where he was gone, I had a friend coming into town where I had a sexual history with him. And he was very much just a friend. So there was nothing beyond that, but we also happened to really enjoy having sex together. So I proposed it to my partner and he gave me what he called his green light. So my friend and I had an amazing night together. So much fun. I learned his previous partnership had been open as well, which I hadn't known about. So we just had a great time just learning more about each other and playing and having fun. And I was so excited to talk to my partner. I felt it's still hard to put into words. It was like I thought I had experienced love in its fullness before. And then it was opening up this whole other level of appreciation and closeness and intimacy for my partner. And I called him the second I left my friend's place. And I was so excited, I was gushing. And then I heard nothing on the other end of the line. Dead silence until he goes, "I can't believe you did it." And everything fell apart. So all that to say, whether it was a matter of he was testing me or it was a matter of he thought we'd be okay with it and then found out, actually, I can't handle this, in which case you go, "Hey, I have a boundary I didn't know. This is really uncomfortable. Can we talk about it?" Either way, don't test your partner and lean into that discomfort. But that's what started my journey. And I realized, you know what, this is real for me. I need to figure this out and I need to do it on my own so I'm not hurting anybody on the way.
I think he really did his best to stay with you, but some people are made for that, some people are not. And especially I think when the feelings and the deep love is involved, you know.
Yeah, I wish we could have leaned in and really explored, what came up for him in that moment. And that's what I teach, clients of mine that come to me that are dealing with jealousy or whatever it is. Those are not things to run away from. Those are powerful tools that help you grow and actually bring you closer together.
Okay, so for you, the reason to explore non-monogamy was that you enjoy that your partner experiences something new and you enjoy doing so as well, right? I think if you think about it, there are so many reasons why people are seeking non-monogamy. Like it's variety of choices and bodies and experiences that gives you this emotional fulfillment that you don't have when you come back home and it's the same position over and over again, right? It's in on the personal level when you get a chance to meet more and more people, because the married couples, right, they're close, their circle doesn't expand over the years, it's only getting smaller. But still, non-monogamy doesn't work for everyone, and that was a great example that didn't work for your last monogamous boyfriend.
And we didn't have any tools as a part of it too. Non-monogamy isn't the reason a relationship ends. Generally, what it does is it brings to light issues that were already at play that maybe weren't being looked at or addressed because it was easier to hide it under monogamy.
Okay, let's for example take women as an example, right? Because I think men on a physiological level they are more likely to be non-monogamous or polyamorous. No, you don't think so? Okay,
that's not what I think. It's what the stats say.
Okay,
most in a heteronormative couple, so that's a man and a woman in a partnership. Generally, it's actually the woman who brings this conversation forward, because it's really important to remember that opening up your relationship in whatever dynamic you choose isn't necessarily only about sex, if it's even about sex. It's just about connection. Sex is one of the ways that we connect, one of the things that can add variety to our life, but it's not the only reason or the whole reason that people necessarily want to. It can be, but it is actually women generally who bring this conversation forward in relationships.
Wow, that's very interesting. I'm not saying that this is absolute truth, never. We are here to explore and to find this truth.
Well, if you're open, I'd love to share where that comes from and the studies that are being done and why people think this is shifting in this way right now. So as we gain, as women, as we gain more autonomy through, being able to make our own money, own our own property, learn about ourselves, express ourselves in society more, own what our sexuality is, etc., there is more and more interest. So it's less about gender and more about autonomy. When we have the ability to build our life by design, why wouldn't we build our relationships by design?
Yeah, that's a very important point that you made, that I think this fact that when women gained economic power, they also gained freedom to choose for themselves. Because I don't know, maybe I'm just thinking from my perspective, because every time when I had non-monogamous or open relationship, it was with people who couldn't satisfy me in bed. This one person just couldn't. And that was the prime reason for me to open up. And they were down for that too. And it worked out well. But still, it was common for me, understand that, okay, like I'm a sexual person and sex is such a big part of my life that I dedicated my life to sex, right? So I started working in the industry when I was like 18 years old. And I understood that, okay, not all people are going to be this way. And most of them will not. That's what I had in mind when I was engaged in this kind of relationships. But for you, the motivation was, right, to experience the joy of sharing.
And growth. For me, it's the ability, the more experiences I have, the more experiences my partner or partners have, the more we're going to grow if we lean in, right? So why would I want to limit, my partner? You can only go see movies with that person, and you can only, go to lunch with that person. No, I want you to have all the experiences possible because it's additive to our experience. If you're growing and expanding and learning about yourself and becoming a more fully actualized person, I'm benefiting from that too as your partner. It's mutually beneficial. And personally, yes, since I do experience conversion very strongly, and I have since now experienced jealousy, and I do understand why it has a bad rap. It is very uncomfortable, but very useful. I use it as a tool, and it builds intimacy. You can go into more of that later, but great to distinct.
I don't know, I always thought that there are two types of women. There's one type of women who think that sex is their obligation. This is something like they trade for something, like to get something from men or to get them into marriage, into a relationship, right? Because they don't enjoy sex. They don't know how their body works, how to make them experience pleasure, how they make their pussy, like how they don't know any of that about themselves because they never studied it or they never felt sexually empowered. And there is another type of women that wear red all the time, and that feel themselves sexually empowered enough to say, this is my needs and this is what I'm doing.
It's a journey, I joke, I never had the cooties phase and stuff, but that doesn't mean I was comfortable necessarily with this part of myself. I grew up, all my friends were guys for the most part, and then I got boobs really young, and suddenly all my guy friends were looking at me different. And so that changed things. It made me want to hide. I wore baggy clothes, all that. Then I started realizing, wait, there's power in this. Interesting. What if I dress a little different, a little tighter? And that shifted some things for me. So it was interesting to learn how to play with that. But all that to say, it's a journey of self-exploration. And, it's this funny thing, at least in our society here in the US, there's this idea you should just know. You have a body, so you should know how it works and how it experiences pleasure. Not that it should, because, pleasure is wrong. It's not wrong. Pleasure is very, very important for our health. And you're just expected to understand how it all works. You're expected to understand how relationships work because, you exist and maybe you have parents but we're not ever taught any of these things. It's akin to saying, hey, you have a voice. You should be able to sing well. No, generally you have to learn how to do that. You have to learn how to use your instrument. So going on that journey of learning about your body, learning about your pleasure, learning how to have relationships that satisfy and fulfill you and are, consensual and expansive. That's a skill set you have to develop. It's not just something we're born with.
So at what age did you start to learn how your body works and how you enjoy and what you enjoy and who you enjoy?
It's been a journey, continues to be. Definitely not off the ride yet. It was quite a journey because like I said, I was very closeted younger. I remember the exact moment in the locker room in middle school when I learned, oh, it's bad to feel the way I feel when I see a girl that I think is pretty. I shouldn't feel that way. I need to not feel that way. And so I learned to just make girls that I thought were pretty, that I had crushes on. I just learned how to make them my best friend. So I just learned really young how to friend zone the hell out of myself. And it's still a problem, working on it. But that really came later. And it really came through, quite frankly, the male gaze. Because I was dating men and, we were playing with women, but it was very much for the pleasure of my partners. Yes, of course, I was enjoying myself as well. But there was that element of my male partner. And it wasn't until later in the journey that I really started exploring what my own pleasure was with women. Did I enjoy that as well? Yes, I do. And what does that look like? And it's ongoing. And again, back to why I love open relating so much as a term you'll hear. Just it's a way of open relationships, like everything we're talking about, non-monogamy, relating with people openly, having relationships openly allows me to uncover more things about myself, not just like my physical pleasure, like it's my personal growth. I thought, in my personal development, I was like, okay, I have an anxious attachment tendency. Let me work on that. Okay, I'm in a secure place now. I know what my triggers are. Like, I'm good. And then here I am in a new, secondary partnership to my primary partnership. And I'm noticing all these avoidant behaviors that I've never done before. And I'm like, who is this? What's happening? Oh, there's more for me to work on. So it's always just like an unfolding of the next chapter. And as long as you can practice that curiosity for, hey, what's next? It makes it a little bit more fun.
Yeah, the thing that you mentioned here that that when you were at school, right, and you didn't know if it was normal or not, because for real, like at schools, nobody really teaches you sex education.
No,
Excuse me, but
useful.
like scare you off and tell you that sex will lead to HIV and that you will die. Because I remember, like at my school, that was the kind of sex education that I got, and
Sex appropriation, that's it.
that's not a topic that is coming back here for some reason after this country has already gone through sexual revolution. Now we have to discuss this again. That's so ridiculous. Yeah, there are people who are curious to learn, and people who are not curious, they will never explore this parts of themselves. They will always stay in this closet because this public education system doesn't want you to be sexually empowered, doesn't want you to be free.
Doesn't want you to be empowered. Period.
Yes, exactly.
Tapping into this sensual empowerment, which is also something I work on with my clients, it changes your entire life. I'm telling you, when I started doing this work and I really got to know this part of myself, how powerful it is, and not being ashamed to lead from that place. And that doesn't mean I walk around in a bikini all day, every day. Like it's an energetic thing. Everything in my life changed. Finances, professionally, my family relationships, everything changed.
I'm so glad that you did come to this point of your life and that you can say that about yourself, because so many people are sexually depressed and unhappy just because they weren't brave enough to open this door, or they were thinking about what other people would think about more than they would think about themselves. And I think patriarchy is another big problem here, why so many women cannot feel sexually empowered, because even though the statistics shows us that like 4% of global population is currently in non-monogamous relationship, and this is like only the people, the consensual non-monogamous, and this is only the people who admit it, right? Mm-hmm. But still, we all understand that, okay, this is happening everywhere. But do you think that, first of all, patriarchy is a root of monogamy?
Well, there's a few theories. The short answer is yes, it's definitely related. It's a tool. It can be a tool of the patriarchy. There are a few theories as to kind of where monogamy started. If you go back and you look at agricultural early agricultural societies, it was a part of shifting land ownership and things like that. I mean, have you actually read a marriage contract? It has nothing to do with your relationship or love or anything. It's about mergers and acquisitions, basically. It's about land ownership and splitting up assets and things like that. It's I think it's sexy, but that's a different conversation. It has nothing to do with actually designing your relationship. So all that to say, there's this misnomer that, monogamy is so new. Non-monogamy is so new. And that's not true. Monogamy is actually the new kid on the block. Non-monogamy has been around since like BCE, dating back to Mesopotamia. We are a social communal species. And again, the conversation is not non-monogamy good, monogamy bad. It's about understanding relationship dynamics as an entirety, right? Monogamy is part of that. But there's a lot of other ways to have relationships as well. And when we limit it to this one narrow definition, and it's related very literally to ownership and human beings, lives at the, earlier stages where it's ownership of a person. And yeah, that is very, very evidently a power system, power.
That's a very good point that you mentioned, that it's not a recent thing, that even in Bible, in Hinduism, right? Like in a Hindu religion, Krishna had, I don't know how many wives, but a lot. And you have Islam, where it's still normal to have multiple wives, like legally, right? And ancient Greeks also were known for having multiple sexual encounters and a group of encounters.
And it's not just men. It's just the unfortunate nature of how time works and how history is retold is history is told by those who win and they erase other things. So there are civilizations where women also had many partners. It wasn't so gender specific. But yes, the ones you're speaking to that are relatively recent and are more referred to these days are an example. But again, just really important to reiterate that it's not a gendered thing. It's about how we relate to each other and grow. And the consensual part too, you've mentioned a few times that non-monogamy is not a synonym for cheating, right? It's a very, very different thing. It is all about everyone involved giving their consent and understanding what's going on.
Yeah, I get that, but like, I mean, you were born and raised in the United States, right? So I just want to like understand from a different perspective because, you know, like here, like there is a variety of choices and how you
Now,
live your life.
We're talking about it finally.
Yeah. For example, like places like US, Canada, Netherlands, Italy, there, the whole concept of non-monogamy is not new and it's totally normal. Like people who
I don't know about that. I don't know that it's totally normal. We're still having to do a lot of work to help people understand that it's a healthy option. That doesn't mean they've failed monogamy or like no one is failing. It's another option.
I don't know, maybe it's just like specific people I know, but for example, people from Germany or Netherlands, if they are in a situation that, okay, now they can have like a group sex with their partner, without their partner, or there's an opportunity to go to the sex club with a group of people, they go for it, they don't even think, like, you know?
In Europe, there's a little bit more ease. I misunderstood what you're saying.
For someone from the conservative background, right, at least you have to like think about it. But somebody over there, like even, it doesn't matter what is the status of their relationship, but it's just a part of the culture. Mm-hmm. Wearing latex, going out to the club, like doesn't matter how you look, doesn't matter what age, but doesn't matter if you are married or not. It's just like a barbecue, you know?
It's just another wonderful thing in life to experience.
Yeah. So we'll have a lot, you know, to learn from these cultures, I think, because yeah, the freedom is something that makes you grow and makes you happy. That's period.
And you can look at cultures even now. Like I was on Easter Island actually over the holidays, and they're an example of a culture that is still communal. You know, when two people have a child, it's not the way that we treat it here, where it's your child and your child, and there's only two parents, and there's a lot of paperwork if it needs to go beyond that. There, the child is a child of the community. There is a communal raising of that child. And look, there's pros and cons to both dynamics, but the point being there are other ways of doing things that can work, that can be beneficial, and keeping the conversation open to help people understand themselves so that they can discover the relationship frameworks that work for them and what they need.
Have you been to Hawaii? Mm-hmm. Have you like interacted with the locals? I was so surprised when I came there for the first time, and when I started dating a guy who was like local Hawaiian, and when I realized that okay, like for all of them, it's so normal to share partners. It doesn't matter like girls, guys, like doesn't matter at all. How many people are involved also doesn't matter. Like if one of them has a kid, all of them will take care of the kid. If one of them doesn't have money, all of them will provide. One day you will provide for someone, but this is such an amazing concept that the whole world cannot live like that because we have our cultural backgrounds are too different. I think
there's still units, right? It's not like everybody's dating everyone everywhere all the time. Like there's units called, polycules, where that'll be a group of people who are all engaging with each other romantically and sexually. And it doesn't mean that they engage with everyone all the time and they're open, but they can be a closed polycule where they're only interacting with each other, or they can be an open polycule where the members can have other partners or other experiences. Oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought.
Guys, if you look up types of non-monogamous relationships, you will be so surprised. I guess, like I was super surprised when I saw like how many types are out there, and new terms come out every year. So we have like polygamy, right? What else?
Well, that's the polyamory. It's two different things.
So polyamory It's meant to
Polygamy
have
is multiple wives. Polyamory is multiple
multiple relationships.
Yeah. So there's numerous ones, like to your point, open marriages, open relationships,
Okay.
swinging or swapping. Polyamory can be hierarchical or non-hierarchical as well. There's relationship anarchy. I want people to understand that it seems like a lot. It can feel maybe overwhelming, but compare it to this. If all you could ever order when you went to the restaurant was the same dish, then yeah, when you went to a restaurant with a ton of other things or a scratch kitchen where it's just a bunch of ingredients and you have to build your own meal, it's overwhelming, but it's delicious. Because you can try something new and you can learn, hey, you know what? Actually, I don't like that dish. I do like the dish that I was having before, but now you know.
Okay, so here is the task for somebody, for somebody like you. Maybe you will help me to figure this out. I like to order the same dish at the restaurant, right? But at the same time, maybe if that's why I always considered myself as a serial monogamous, right? But at the same time, I don't think it would be quite honest to say that I'm monogamous either, because if I'm not in a relationship, if someone will offer me like, I don't know, threesome or foursome with like 3 dudes on my birthday, I will not say no. Okay? So I will not.
They know too. Yeah.
When things like that happen, I'm usually not in a committed relationship. But it's also not that like this other partners that I have, it's not that we sit down and discuss, because they don't want to discuss. And I understand that they also seen other people, and we just understand that, yes, we click, but we click like for once a week, not for like every day living together, right? And it gives both of us right to do whatever we want. But at the same time, when I'm like deeply in love, and I'm deeply in love only with men that are like high sex drive, and then some, like maybe people say that I'm also a lot. When you have a partner like that, and you have this bubble, and there's so much happening in your bed that, like, I mean, if we bring another person, then when we'll spend in the bed like 24 hours and no, shit will not get done, you know. Who am I? Because I was trying to put myself in this like groups and this classification. I've heard this new term, monogamish.
Yeah.
Sort of
Thank you, Dan.
Am I monogamish, which means that you have sex with other people occasionally, like you are in a partnership, but you have threesomes or something, the special occasion? Or who am I? Because I'm just wondering, just myself, you know, too.
Thank you so much for bringing that to me. First of all, who you are not is a lot. Who you are not is too much. You are never too much or a lot for somebody who's your match. And that doesn't just mean sexually, emotionally, humor, lifestyle. There's so many different things. If somebody is telling you that you're too much or a lot, that says more about them than you. And that just means you're not compatible. So you are exactly what you need to be. You are on your journey uncovering what you're interested in, what you like to do. It sounds like sex drive is very important to you in a primary relationship. Do you want to have matched libidos? And that's not the case for everyone, because we get into trouble in our society when we conflate the words. We think that, you know, love, sex, and commitment all mean the same thing. But they're actually, again, going back to our food analogy, they're just ingredients that we use in a relationship. So for you, you're more interested in spending time and energy on someone who you are very sexually compatible with. That's great. And it would be really interesting to explore does that make them the person that you also want to build a life with? Does that make them the person you also want to see every day, that you also, you know, I don't know if you want kids or not, or what that is. Is that someone you want to also have kids with? Is that someone you also want to live with? These are all options of things we get to do with people. They don't all have to be the same person. But when we go into the one size fits all relationship, this is the only way to do it, we think we have to get all of this from one person, and we have to be all of that to the one person, and it has to match exactly right. And if we get it wrong, there's something wrong with us, and that's just bullshit.
Yeah.
That help a little bit as far as like framing?
So, I mean, I just don't have to try to define it, right? Like, I just have to,
You know, you're figuring elements out. You know,
Yeah.
I can't speak because I don't know the specific person or the dynamics or anything, but the libido is very important to you, which is great. It could be that is that partner for you that you explore and have wonderful sex with, and that's your main connection. Maybe their, value system doesn't match as far as, having kids together. And maybe that's okay because you can do that with another partner. But until you kind of try that, it's hard to really say.
It's not that for me relationship is all about sex, no. But if I'm thinking like about living a life together, going to bed every day together, then if you don't want sex and I want it, then like, okay, well, what do I do? Sex toys from the bed.
Or you have a conversation with your partner and as you grow, because also something to remember, libido does change. Sex drive is very important to me too. It's been a huge part of all of my long-term relationships. It's something I really enjoy. And I love alleviating the pressure from my partner having to be the everything of that. And vice versa. Because sometimes we're not together, or sometimes, I'm not into it. Or there's something that they're really interested in and I'm not. I want them to have that thing. I don't want to do it. I don't have to do it. They can do that with someone else. So what you're speaking to is like, you want that person who's got that drive, and your libido may change over time. Their libido may change over time. So just making sure that you have a core connection, that whatever partnership dynamic you build with them, that it is that it's a safe space for you both to revisit regularly. What are your commitments to each other? What are your boundaries? Are you interested maybe in bringing someone else in or dating someone else or not? It's an ongoing conversation because your relationship is just as alive as you are. It's growing, it's changing throughout your entire life for as long as you are with any one person.
Okay, I will give it more thought and consideration, but another important topic here is jealousy. On one hand, if you try something and you understand, okay, this is the point where we cannot overcome this jealousy, right? At least you go this way and he goes that way and you don't waste each other time. Some people might think that they would be okay with opening up or with having like one threesome will not like changing anything. But at the same time, I've had friends who were married, right? And then like, for example, the guy saying for 2-3 years, hey, I really want it, maybe we should do it on vacation. I strongly believe that jealousy is the bad thing. That's the thing that is draining you down, because when you are a jealous person and you look at other people and you're thinking about the things that you don't have and they have, like, it's not healthy. And I was always like against jealousy in this particular way. But when it comes to the personal relationships and when it comes to like sexual relationships, it was very controversial for me, because on one hand, I understand that jealousy is bad. But on the other hand, I understand that like there are hormones and there are just some kind of things that you can't necessarily control with your mind, because when, for example, you have a couple who were together for 5 years, right? And this time she wants to give him a threesome for his birthday because he was craving for that for this entire time. And then how in hell, after 5 years of seeing and feeling the same pussy over and over again, and he has this new one, this like fresh and new, and how he can just forget and leave it there? It will bring up a lot of this, what was suppressed during these years. And it's not necessarily that he can stay in this, closed monogamous relationship moving forward. Especially when we're talking about people who consider themselves as monogamous. Yeah. Or it's again about like being thoughtful and plan this well enough to avoid all of this turbulence.
I wanna push back on it, because jealousy is not bad. Right? Emotions happen. We don't actually control our emotions. We control what reactions, do we respond or do we react? What is our choice as far as our action? Are we motivated by our emotions, or do we take a moment, let them, move through us and then make an action? But they happen. Jealousy is not wrong or bad. It's how you use it. Understanding that jealousy is actually showing you information. I'll use an example from my own life, right? So I said earlier, I had only ever experienced compersion for, most of my earlier dating life. I thought that's what jealousy was. I would get turned on. It was super yummy. And then it actually wasn't until my first non-monogamous partnership that I got to experience jealousy for the first time, which was very surprising to me. Because I'm like, here I am living the life I designed or the partnership I want. Why am I feeling this way? And it came up so strongly in a very specific experience. We were with another couple, and I'm not physically able to do a certain thing that he enjoys, and she was. And he got to experience the thing that he enjoys, and I got to watch. And normally, I love that. And in this instance, it ruined my night. I was so upset and uncomfortable, and I was mad at myself for feeling that way, and what is happening, and like I should be celebrating this, and da 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 da. And the process that came about from that was the understanding that I was experiencing insecurity in the relationship. So I like to break it down. There's 4 main types of romantic jealousy, right? So there's insecurity, something about myself, oh, I couldn't physically do that thing. She could, that makes her better, whatever story. There is comparison or competition. Yeah, again, she's better than me, right? Because I can't do that thing. There's fear of abandonment. He's going to leave me for her because she's better and can do the thing that I can't do. And then there is distrust. And that's a form of insecurity that is really about the partnership, the dynamic, rather than the individual. So I had to look at it and go, okay, I'm experiencing jealousy, feeling insecure. I am doing comparison. I am afraid of abandonment. And there is distrust. I am experiencing an insecurity in this relationship. There are elements of this relationship where I don't feel like we're on solid ground. So I worked on my own personal insecurity, and then I brought it to my partner when I was had done the work that I could do, so we could then work on it together. And then we talked about our relationship. And after a couple of years, we were together for a couple of years. This was not the reason that we did end up deciding to uncouple. But it helped us look at, hey, where are the areas of improvement? Both, for myself, what can I look at and, either grow in or just get comfortable with? What can we work on in our relationship together? But if we had just run away from that, avoided it, it would have turned into resentment, unspoken things. It would have blown up in our face. It was certainly uncomfortable. Do not get me wrong. Like, I do not enjoy jealousy. I would much rather it doesn't visit, but it does. It's just the nature of life. And it's getting out of that idea that there is something wrong with you if it comes up. Understanding that it is actually for your benefit to lean in, to use jealousy, like let it be your best friend for personal development and growth. Like, lean in, be like, oh, this is really uncomfortable. Let's go.
I mean, yeah, I think that's a really good point, because usually things that are the most difficult and the most uncomfortable, that's the things that you are supposed to do to become a better person,
So
become a better version of yourself.
You go to the gym, you lift heavy weights. Like, it's uncomfortable. You have to get really uncomfortable.
Yeah, some people like it though. Like, I mean,
all that to say, like, the point is you can't get stronger without that resistance. So there is going to be discomfort. That's how we grow.
Every time when I was in a group sex with men, there was no jealousy, because men, like, I don't know, they're just simpler about this, I guess. I don't know, but maybe
about that.
but those were not the men that I was like in a committed relationship with. Those were men that wanted that particular thing, and I wanted that, and it's just everything came along. When it was like even me and the guy and another couple, and we would like switch partners, sometimes women were jealous, and then you like sit there and you think like, oh my gosh, I came here to and now I have to process all of this that has happened in a relationship.
Did they ask to talk to you about it, or were they just kind of throwing it at you?
I understood that was a setup. Like, the guy who invited me, and the guy who was at the apartment, like his best friend, they had this thing, like, they like to share their partners. But that was definitely like a situation where like that was supposed to happen. So I didn't,
It sounded like there were some insecurities and maybe some elements of distrust in that core partnership that they had, and that was something for them to work on. That's not your role when you're coming in. So I'm sorry to hear that it was kind of put on you in that way, because that's not the way to handle that. I hope they were able to lead in and learn something and get a little support on that.
So do you think we have to draw the line between love and sex? I think a lot of people, they put all of this in one basket.
It's a problem. It's not the same thing. They're related. They can be related, but they don't have to be.
Because I think like love and everything that is like around the relationship territory, it does come with responsibilities. It does come with this feeling responsible for that another person and for that relationship. And a lot of people tend to think that non-monogamy is the avoidance of responsibility.
It's a mistake to think that.
But at the same time, like people like you, right, and people who are in sexually positive open communities, they understand that there are rules in place. It doesn't mean that like if you sleep with multiple people, doesn't make you a dick as long as you don't behave like one, right?
You can still cheat on someone or be cheated on in a non-monogamous dynamic. Cheating is about lying and deceit. It's not about whether you're having an emotional or sexual connection with someone else. It's about the truth.
Yeah. I think that's more about like what kind of person you are. If you lie in general, you will lie if you are non-monogamous or monogamous, just because you are a liar. Like, it's not about this relationship setup. It's about the shit that you have to work on. Like,
it's responsibility for anyone, right? So if we're dealing with a couple, the way I work with clients who come to me that are a couple or partner, is the understanding that, first of all, if you're in a monogamous couple, you're actually already in a threesome. So there's you, there's your partner, and there's a relationship. And each one of you needs just as much attention and effort as the other one. So right out the gate, it's not this us versus them. So you're responsible, like your partner is, for creating the relationship to be a safe place to make mistakes in. Because you're going to make mistakes. You're a human being. You are going to fuck up. It is guaranteed. And I hate saying that because I'm a perfectionist, but I do. I fuck up. So it's mutual, right? A relationship is a mutual engagement. You are creating something with someone that needs to be a place that you each feel safe coming into with, hey man, I've really fucked up. I am scared right now. I don't know what you're going to do. I probably hurt you. I didn't want to. But it has to be a space where you feel safe doing that. If you think you're going to get attacked by your partner anytime you bring something into the relationship, why on earth would you do that? Of course you'd want to hide and retract. And it's not about, being an evil person or whatever. And yeah, there are certainly people who just want to lie, but they're very few and far between. Most people do not want to hurt people that they care about. We have to be responsible for the environment that we're creating, the relationship that we're creating, to make sure it's a space that we can make mistakes in and learn from and grow from.
Again, you have invented, you were born in the most democratic and the most free society. And I think that's how normal person, moral person, truly moral person, supposed to feel. However, in all of these Muslim countries, in a conservative Russia, for example, no, not Muslim, but still like Christian, kind of Christian.
There's a great deal of control going on. Lots of controlling behavior.
But, like there are 150 million people that think that lying in order not to hurt someone is a good thing. It never resonated with me. I always felt that it was wrong, but it was so widely acceptable that it really, it was blowing my mind. And then when I came here, I finally realized, okay, I was the normal one. And that was just a up place where I wasn't supposed to be born.
Something being widely utilized or even, quite frankly, widely celebrated does not mean it's the most effective thing. It just means it's the most widely accepted by, whatever institute of power is in place at that time.
Yeah, but I don't think you can be intelligent and emotionally intelligent person if you think that cheating or lying to other people in order to avoid uncomfortable conversation is a way to go.
Yeah, it's not a marker of emotional intelligence.
What I have noticed? That like people who are in this like sex positive space, right, in communities, they understand all of this. But however, people who use Tinder a lot, who this men who are addicted to dating apps. There was like a few years when I just want to see what's out there, just to see what market has to offer.
Market research.
Yeah, it was just interest, just to see what it can be or what it cannot. But the thing is that most of them, from Tinder especially, I don't think they considered non-monogamy as a type of relationship that comes with responsibility. Those were the guys that would never marry, that never have kids, that can barely, take care of their own space, their own work, and their own shit. And that's why, of course, they could never, have this conversation about polyamory or having responsibilities with multiple people.
You can use any relationship framework to avoid intimacy. There are plenty of people in monogamous dynamics that are avoiding intimacy. You can certainly use non-monogamy to avoid intimacy as well. It's about, again, relationship dynamics as a whole and learning the skills you need to do them in a healthy way. It's a lot, well, I was going to say it's a lot easier, but that's not true. It might seem a lot easier up front to avoid all that hard work, but it is going to bite you in the ass, and not in a fun way eventually.
Yeah, so we came to the point in 2024 that we have 70% divorce rate, right? 25% of married people want to get a divorce, but they can't for some reasons, like obligations, kids, businesses, sharing home, and etc. I know a lot of people who are happy about being non-monogamous. I know more than I know people who are happy to be in this monogamous committed relationship. But however, I do have some couples who've been together like for 30 years, for 20 years together. But I think it's also a different generation. They didn't have the variety of choices, this paradox of choices that we have.
Well, they had a very different definition of success when it comes to relationship. You have to determine what success means to you in a relationship first before you can find it. You might not have the same vision for what you want as, the person you're with at the time. So understanding, like, is it that I want to be with you for the rest of my life? Not everyone wants a life partner. Not everyone wants kids. I don't want kids. I've never wanted. Well, at 6 months, right after around the time I turned 30, that is very biological. But other than that, I've never had the desire. It's just not something I'm interested in. So why would I do that? I lost my train of thought again.
But I can tell you, I'm in the same boat. Like, there was one man who convinced me that, like, maybe that's an option, but again, like, without, doing that. But still, I think maybe, do you think we have like more testosterone? Or
Our society has shifted. We have more available to us as women, especially, like to what we were saying earlier. There's more freedom. There's more autonomy. We make our own money. We make our own homes. We can have our own relationships the way we want to. We're not dependent on, a man or a partner to, bring home the veggie bacon or whatever. It's like, I'm vegan. Actually, I like to say I'm vegan because I live a consent-based lifestyle. I won't eat anyone without their permission. Anyway, so yeah, we don't have the same definition of success because society has shifted. There are so many more versions of success now. It's not just stable income, home over your head, have, the 2.5 kids, dinner on the table every night. There are many, many ways of creating life now where there were less options. And that's just a part of progress and society growing up.
Yeah, we are lucky to live in this time from this perspective, because a lot of time, like, I complain about the time I'm living because, like, I'll prefer to, like, live in 80s or something.
You think you always, because you romanticize the past, but there's some nasty stuff in the past.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair enough. But, the fact that perception of, like, the different relationships and sexuality in general has shifted, that's for sure. I'm just curious how the perception of society and your circle affected you when you were exploring yourself. Because, like, when I was with this first guy that I lost virginity with, my mom, she was crying when I broke up with him because she was literally thinking that I was supposed to be with him until the rest of my life, right? How did this perception of, like, your people around you, your friends, your family, how did it impact your decision to explore?
I think I was I am very lucky, still, in certain regards, in that, my mom has always said, as long as you're healthy, safe, and happy, great, I'm good with that. I don't need all the juicy details. I still tell her some that I spare her some as much as I can. We're both learning together. But that's pretty incredible considering what a lot of people have had to go through on this journey. I've had multiple coming outs, sexually, relationally. Like, I'm now out publicly, professionally in this way. This has been a huge part of my personal life, being queer, being non-monogamous since, 2016. But I haven't been so out loud about it in the media and everything else in the way that I am now through my company, Passport to Pleasure. It's exciting. And I feel very privileged to be able to be in a position where I can do that safely, where I can do that confidently, where I can ideally have an impact. Because for me, community was a huge part of it. It was a journey. And after that relationship I mentioned earlier, where it kind of blew up, it was my last monogamous relationship. I realized, okay, I gotta figure this out. I gotta explore on my own. I know there's these communities out there, universe. I don't know where they are, but like, I'm ready. Introduce me. So I got on Snaps and I went on some dates, kind of what you were talking to. I'd never really done at this point. I had only ever been, sexually active with a committed partner that I'd been with for multiple years, monogamously. And so I was like, I'm going to date. I'm going to have one night stands. I'm going to do things that like adult women do. Like, here we go. And I started just checking experiences off and I was having a ball and I was certainly learning a lot of lessons the hard way for sure. Again, why I offer what I offer through Passport to Pleasure is like, you don't have to learn them the hard way. I have always figured stuff out. Like I like to say, I find my boundaries by smashing into them head on. I do not recommend that. It has taken me years and lots of work and lots of discomfort to get to this point where I am now. But all that to say, I landed myself at my first play party. It was like my second or third day. We're cleaning up. It was just a one afternoon stand. And he was like, you know what? I feel like you might be interested in these events. And that was his whole purpose in my life. Never saw him again. And I ended up going to my first party. I went solo, brought a bottle of wine. I didn't realize how, unique, I guess it was to people that I would go to not only a party solo, but like my first party. So I was very lucky. The hosts of the party were these two friends and play partners. And the second they found out it was my first party, they just lost their minds. They were so excited. They went around introducing me to everyone. They wanted me to they just really wanted to give me like a feel comfortable. Yeah, like it was very, very, very sweet. And I remember it was later in the evening. It was in this like beautiful penthouse suite in a hotel. And I was like looking around and I was like, wow, it's earlier. It was late in the night, but it was earlier than I thought it would be for it to have cleared out so much. I'm like, there's, I guess a lot of people left and didn't, I saw some stuff, but I thought I was going to see more. Like, okay, interesting. And so I mentioned this to one of the hosts and they were like, oh, honey, no, come with me. And they brought me down this hallway that I didn't even see when I first came in. And it opened up into what I can only call the orgy room. It was just a big, open, sprawling expanse of just bodies, like moving, glowing. And it was like a Renaissance painting. It was very much a moment of like it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. I was like, I am home. This is real. It's healthy. Like it was all I could do to not cry. And I had said to myself, I don't really need to play tonight. I'm just going to go and, see what the vibe is. And one of the hosts, she came up to me and she was just like, you have the most beautiful breasts. Like, do you mind if I play with them? Do you mind if I, do a few other things? And I was like, sure. Yes, make this even more magical. And that was such a defining moment for me. And it really rocketed me into my journey of finding community and really understanding that this was not only healthy and normal, but there were other people like me. There were places for me to play and learn and other people to connect with and to make mistakes because they're important. But you can make less of them with a guide. But yes, community was
leave a link for Passport to Pleasure in the description of this video, guys.
Yeah, I always say, you are welcome. I had to do it all on my own. There was no me when I started. So I had to figure a lot of stuff out the hard way. It took a lot of time. A lot of expensive therapy sometimes, a lot of mistakes. I'm so grateful for every single moment. And it doesn't have to take that amount of time. It doesn't have to involve heartache like that. It doesn't have to be you can fast forward and make exponential progress working with somebody who's already been on the path before, who's still on the path, with you. That's why I say guide, not coach. I'm not on the sidelines. I'm actively in the game, still playing. And I love being able to share with people everything I've learned because I've loved this journey, but it has been really hard. And
high five. I also learned everything from my mistakes to teach others because that's what we do. We learn to teach. That's a huge thing that you are doing for society and community because, people are so incredibly unhappy just because they don't know that there is this another way of living where they can do whatever they want in bed, where they can have all of that and enjoy themselves and embrace themselves. And it was always so crazy for me that we had to hide it. We had to hide our desires, hide our sexuality, not express ourselves. And it definitely sold me on the play party.
Yeah. Well, and you're talking too about, other systems of oppression and power and government things like that in other parts of the world. I really believe, I say this cheekily, but I really believe that if our world leaders were better, we'd be less. And that also means like authentic relationships. You know, it's not exclusively sex, but definitely includes sex. But if you were able to have more authentic relationships, be fully self-expressed emotionally, sexually, all of that, then we wouldn't have so much division and fighting and hate, because so much of that comes from resentment, dissatisfaction, and all this stuff, the internal rot that can happen. We're so constrained, dissatisfied.
Yeah, you know, this point that if the world leaders were better we would be less that's 100%, because if you look at what's going on right now, even in democratic societies like the United States, it's absolutely insane, because I don't know like how many people pay attention to that, because there's so much shit going on in the world that a lot of people just try to stay away from the media, from the news, from the TV. And I totally get it, because it really makes you depressed. It's not a healthy thing to do for your mental state at this point of time, like it's just since COVID. But I think right now there is a time for everyone to open the news and see what's going on, because we are at the point when the election is coming up, right? And there's so much going on in terms of this conservative rhetorics. And of course, like we're sitting here at Right Love Rock that says sex beds. Obviously, we think that privacy regarding like our sexual choices, regarding like our bodies, needs to be respected, needs to be like a top priority, right? But now, after this whole war on contraception, abortion pills, the Plan B, now there is a new thing. They suggest to treat frozen embryos as humans, right? So you cannot dispose them anymore if you change your mind. If you don't want to give birth, you cannot do it anymore.
Cool.
And then there's right-wing activists, because those people, like, I mean, they're really not so flexible and accepting from different worldviews, I'd say.
That's a very sweet way of saying that.
Yeah, like this is the very soft way of saying it. Christopher Rufo tweeted that recreational sex is the reason of population decline, and that sex has to be a way to create children and not sexual gratification.
Wait, are we short on humans? Are we running out? I didn't realize.
If you look at the world and the Earth was supposed to stop a long time ago.
We're beyond capacity.
But there is another game that the governments and authorities are playing. Whoever has more people has the bigger economic power and the bigger capacity for the wars. And yes,
Yeah.
So it's not about you and your needs. It's about like what the bigger picture and the games they are playing with each other.
And it comes down to freedom of thought. Freedom in general leads to freedom of thought. People who have freedom to think for themselves are a lot harder to control. So if we restrict sex and we restrict your autonomy over your own body, like, I mean, you're not free. You can't think for yourself. You can't act for yourself.
Of course, and the thing is that they also give you all of this with this kind of religious sauce, you know, on the top of this bullshit. But the fact that religion in the United States right now is targeting sex, like I'm talking about Christian church, but there are different Christian churches. There are Christian churches that are founded by right-wing activists, and there are churches that were not. Some of them are used as a tool to control the population and control your thoughts and control what you do with your body. And in my opinion, the fact that politicians all believe in, where there are so many problems, where there are wars going on, where there is hunger, where people are living on the streets, where you have all the effects of pandemic, you know, still they have post effects of pandemic. And now they are thinking about our dirty laundry and what we are doing with each other, closed curtains. Like, how is that even possible? And where it's all going? And what do you think is driving this focus?
I mean, I want to also really quickly just note, you know, you're speaking to, you know, the Christians and Muslims and Jews, and like, you know, there's all these different groups, right, and these labels. And we go, well, if I say I'm a Christian, then you know what that means, and I don't have to, you know, I'm a Christian, therefore I'm a Christian. It's the same thing like saying, you know, you're my boyfriend, therefore XYZ, without ever talking about it. Labels don't give us the security. Labels don't give us anything other than a conversation starter. Oh, you're so-and-so's girlfriend? What are your relationship agreements? Oh, you're Christian? What does that mean to you? How do you live your life? It's these labels that we're using as like false identifiers. So your question as to like, why is this happening? It's kind of what I said before. It's, we're a massive species. There are a lot of us. It is really hard to control mass amounts of people, especially if they can think for themselves. So the goal isn't everyone being self-actualized and fully realized and happy and healthy and all that stuff, because that equates to chaos to some people who want to have the power over everything. Now, there do have to be systems in place so that we can all function with each other. And those are like relationship agreements. You know, girlfriend means this to me. This is how I want to interact with you. These are the boundaries I have. I'm willing to test these out, not these, like, et cetera. It's negotiation. But when you want to have like a couple people in charge of everything, then it becomes more about asserting dominance and control and less about agreements and negotiation. I can tell you how it certainly appears to me. And it's, again, it goes down to control. And it's a lot easier to point fingers at somebody else about something than it is to look at yourself and go, I'm unhappy, I'm uncomfortable, and I don't know what to do with that.
I don't remember even 5 years ago coming across so many like posts or rhetorics that is so radical in terms of
anytime you get extreme about anything, it's going to have just the same amount of extremity. That's not extremeness on the other side. You know what I mean? It's the checks and balances of the universe, if you will, with nature. If you push all the way over here, it's going to ricochet like a pendulum. Eventually, ideally, you get a little more balanced. You know, like you said, we've had free love movements and things like that before that have been in a lot of ways more extreme, and we're kicking back to the other side. As we kick back in, it's the history is long.
Yeah, history has its cycles, right?
Exactly. We're here for a moment. We have made a lot of progress in areas, and we've been kicked back in some areas. But people who see things differently than you and I would say the opposite, you know? So it's finding where our overlaps are to make progress together, ideally, because we do have to coexist with people that we don't like, that we don't agree with. Like you need to. You're not going to be surrounding yourself with people who all think like you, agree with everything you say, and grow. You can't grow in that environment. It's just an echo chamber. So there's an advantage to learning how to be around people who don't agree with you. And I'm disappointed in our current climate, cultural climate, that we are in this state of what's called cancel culture. Oh, you've made a mistake, you're done. I don't know how we learn if we don't make mistakes. A repeated mistake, the same thing over and over again. Okay, that's a pattern, that's a behavioral issue, that's a problem. But like, people need to be able to make mistakes. People need to be able to disagree, talk about stuff, learn something about each other. Like, I'm fucking wrong sometimes.
I mean, it's human, you know, to be wrong and to make mistakes and to learn from them. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, I believe in God and I respect all religions. Maybe it's just because I came across this myself, and it really made me think a lot about this. Because first it started with people who would like message me on Facebook telling me that I'm a sinner because I went to AVN, for example, or to XP. Okay, but then like, okay, I'll just forget about it. But then I saw how it actually works, like the brainwashing machine, how it works in real life. So I had a boyfriend, we were about to get married, right? Like, I was on the stairs, and he was super sexual and kinky, and like, you would never even guess what kind of kinks were there, because those were not like common kinks. That was just something that was generated by his
he was a connoisseur. Okay.
But it was intriguing. It was intriguing every time. Then he started going to the church like a lot, but he was trying to do it more kind of like for business purposes, just to make friends with people he needed. But he kind of missed this moment when you tell people something like for a long period of time, sooner or later they start believing in that. Like how Goebbels brainwashed the entire German population and made them think that fascism was the right thing to do, just because the radio just appeared and people didn't know that you can hear bullshit on the radio. They thought that everything they heard was
People
absolutely.
still think that anything online,
Yes.
anything I read on the internet is true.
That's what
Oh
I'm
my
saying.
God.
And it's so dangerous that at the
Very.
time that TV, social media, like everything basically can shift your perspective on things like 180
If you're not trying things for yourself and figuring it out on your own also, like it's important to be exposed to other opinions, thoughts, ideas. Opinions are not facts. They're opinions. Facts are repeatable at least 32 times in a controlled environment. That's a fact. It doesn't matter what else is going on or what you feel about it if it can be repeated over and over. Opinions are interesting, but if you're not figuring out your own and what you like and what works for you and what doesn't, yeah, it's really easy to be swayed this way and that way. And like your sweet question earlier, who am I? We have to figure that out. That's the journey of life. That's the classroom that we're in.
Yep. It is like finishing that story. So what happened?
Sorry.
6 months later, after he was going there like every Sunday, right? I think that was an exception because it was like founded by right-wing activists, and that like I found out later. But then what happened is like he started first experiencing shame and guilt for having sex in the first place. And then he stopped. Like, I mean, when we broke up, he stopped having it at all. And he would like have it like maybe once per year, you know? Every time he would masturbate, he would also feel guilt and do it. You can imagine, right? If you have this high sex drive, how it impacts you if you don't have sex for a year, then what kind of mess you can do, like if you do have it, right?
Really important chemicals that get released with pleasure.
Yeah. So my point here is now that we are getting closer to the election, please think about how you want to see your future, because this is our responsibility of every person, right? To be at least engaged and to think about these things, because we shouldn't let somebody else define where we all are going.
Exactly. I vote for people being able to build the life, the relationships, etc., that they want, whether it's the kind I want them, whether it's the kind I want or not, because that has nothing to do with me. I vote for people to have the freedom to build it their way.
So, with that being said, what would you recommend to people who maybe watch this podcast right now and thinking like, maybe we want to try living like Ellie, maybe you want to try all of these exciting things? Where do they start, and how do you like approach people in exploring this safely?
Yeah, thank you. Yes. First of all, congratulations for asking questions, for being curious, for being like, maybe let's try something new. That's huge. That already sets you way ahead of the pack. The first steps are really important. And that's why I offer a couple free resources on my site so you can really test the waters, without, risking anything. One is called the What the Fuck Do You Want workbook. It's 4 simple but really juicy exercises that help you understand what it is that you want. Like, cool, you want to explore, but like, what do you want to explore? Why do you want to explore? Determining your big why as to why you even want to go on this adventure in the first place is huge, because it's going to determine really all the decisions you make moving forward and how you go about it all. So doing that, understanding your big why. And then the other free resource is the relationship ratio. So if you're partnered, the relationship ratio worksheet helps you understand, again, what we talked about a little earlier. If you're in a couple, you're actually already in a threesome. And helping you understand and be able to calibrate, are you in a stable position right now? Like, do you understand the reciprocity of a dynamic that is able to welcome in some new energy? So once you've got your big why and you've got your relationship ratio at a place that, is healthy and balanced, then you can start exploring some of my other resources, like my foundational course, ENM 101, Exploring Healthy Non-Monogamy. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's Non-Monogamy 101. How do we do this? What does it mean? What are all the relationship dynamics? What are all the vocabulary words that I need to know? What do I want? It helps you understand what your hierarchy of needs are, both on the emotional and romantic plane and the physical and sexual plane. Once you understand that, and now you have an understanding of all the different relationship structures, what they offer, that helps you understand which relationship structure would be your IRS or your ideal relationship structure. And if your partner is far away from you on those planes, if you guys have very different hierarchy of needs, then it helps you understand where the overlap is so you can find a relationship structure that is best for you to at least start with. And then that really sets you up to build what's called the relationship agreement. And that's your big takeaway from the course, E&M 101. You get your own customized relationship agreement, which is the document that you're going to build with your partner that is really going to show you how to navigate everything. You're going to talk about your boundaries. You're going to talk about what are your safer sex practices. If you have kids, what are your co-parents design? How do you engage with new partners? How do you talk about new partners with each other? Do you? What does that look like? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you're really building a foundational document that your relationship really exists from, and you review it regularly.
And you help people too.
Yeah, so that's believe it or not, all of that is in this course.
Non-monogamy lawyer.
But it's true. Like the specifics actually are what give you the freedom. Like people think boundaries are like the walls that we're caged inside, but really boundaries are just the edges of our comfort zone. It's how we know where we can safely push. Safe is the key. You're going to be a little uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is okay. Unsafe is not. So the relationship agreement helps you create a safe container within which you can start pushing those boundaries in a way that's a little uncomfortable, but it's going to benefit you in your growth. So once you go through that process, I then also have my coaching framework, which is the non-monogamy blueprint. And it's a 4-phase process that really helps you build and maintain. You go through a whole process of inventory, design, build, and maintain the relationship framework of your wet dreams. Because this can be your life. You can be this fulfilled and this dynamic and this in love and this intimate and this connected in your partnerships.
I think looking at you, like you look like a very confident and very happy and fulfilled woman. I think for many who thought that monogamy was the only way to go, maybe like even seeing you would be a good example and a good reason to think that maybe this is something I want to explore. But are you able, for example, to tell, like, if somebody comes to you saying like me, right? Like, who am I? What do I do? Can you tell right away, like, not right away, but at least after having a conversation or some checklist to tell if this couple can succeed in non-monogamy? Because again, like, you know, it's a lot of learning, it's a lot of self-exploration, but you know what? A lot of people don't want to learn, and they're not good at learning either, because
they don't want to be good at things without learning. They just want to like be great. And all that to say too, everything that I offer, all the skills that you can learn through this experience are just as applicable in a monogamous relationship. Like you can start exploring and realize, you know what? Actually, my ideal relationship structure is monogamy. Great. Now you have all these skills and tools to actually do that in a healthy way and make sure that you and your partner, if you have one already, or your eventual partner, are really on the same page about what that means and what you're building together. That there is no loss here, no matter what kind of relationship framework you end up in. But to your point, as far as like, you know, is there a one thing, you know, no one's a fortune teller. But I would say that a big indicator is curiosity. Being willing to lean in, to not know, to make mistakes, to learn something new, to be surprised by your partner. That's a huge one. I will get couples, and I work with individuals as well, and polycules and triples. But I do get a number of couples who, you know, what's the saying that, you know, we finish each other's sentences. And I always like to look at them and I just say, well, isn't that just called interrupting? You don't know what your partner is going to say. You think you do because you've spent a lot of time with them. Maybe they do have some patterns and things like that. Maybe there's a higher probability that they're going to say something, but you actually don't know. You don't, because you and your partner ideally are growing and changing throughout your entire life. And so the second you think that your partner can't surprise you anymore, you're really setting yourself up for a struggle. Allow your partner to surprise you. Allow yourself to learn something new, even about yourself as well. Because if they're having these experiences, if they're just having these self-discovery moments, like that's going to reflect for you some things as well that you might be surprised within yourself, and vice versa. Like this is a journey that is only amplified by curiosity and leaning in. and allowing the unknown to be an adventure.
I think like every 5-10 years, right? We change entirely.
On a cellular level, every 7 years, except for things like our cornea or something, but every approximately 7 years, every cell on your body is regenerated. So I am made entirely of plants.
You definitely convinced at least me, that non-monogamy is nothing to be scared of. That's the safe space for exploration and being more in tune with who you are and what are your needs. If you do it safely, if you do it with right people,
with resources,
yeah,
support. It is okay. It is more than okay to get support, to get actually, I do want to bring this up because to your point too, people who think, we don't need a guide, we don't need support in this, we're just going to figure it out, we're going to go with the flow. And often you will not have people in your life that have already been on this journey, and you're going to run into, some friction and some challenges. And what I'll hear a lot of times is couples will come to me because they've sought support from their friends and family who are well-meaning, but they'll say, hey, these issues didn't come up before you opened up your relationship, so maybe you should close your relationship. But that's not necessarily the case. The relationship, like we talked about earlier, opening it up allows you to look at things that were easier to hide in monogamy. And that's an opportunity to actually grow even closer and build your connection and strengthen your intimacy. So making sure you have sources of wisdom that actually have experience and knowledge and tools that you can use to do this the right way.
I think self-awareness is something that is absolutely needed for successful non-monogamous relationship.
And can be built.
Like having different partners and learning how to communicate with them, how to communicate in different styles, how to respect each other's needs, that all combined together does make you more self-aware. And that's where this growth starts, right? I also think it's important to mention that all these ego tendencies that we have and the old jealousy and all of this is coming from there too. From your experience, from what I understood, it did help you to overcome all of this too.
Yeah, I still experience jealousy. I'm not in a story that it's something to get rid of. It's giving me information. It's useful. It's something that allows me to grow and strengthen parts of myself that maybe I didn't even know needed attention. It's my best friend.
So guys, I think now we will have a lot of reasons to check out events where Ellie participates or organizes.
All my courses,
all your courses, passporttopleasure.com. We'll leave a link in the description. Please stay tuned for the events where we'll have you as our vendor or speaker or guest, but this is gonna happen very soon. And I'm really excited about this topic, and I hope that everyone who's watched this podcast now understands that you are free to explore. And if you are right now at the point of your life where you think that this is how it should be, that's how it's supposed to be, it can always change. And your destiny and your life is in your hands. And don't let anyone tell you what you can and cannot do. I'm really happy to hear that non-monogamy did bring you to the point where you can say that helped my personal growth. It helped me to be self-aware.
And all of my relationships, not just romantic, my business relationships improved. I cannot tell you how impactful it is every area of your life to learn these relationship skills.
So guys, even if you think that you're a serial monogamous, please still keep the door open. You never know. But if you decide to find out, please reach out to Ellie, passporttopleasure.com. Thank you so much for watching this podcast, and thank you, Ellie, for coming here and bed with Kate at Ride Love Rock today in Beverly Hills. The best beds that make you love more every day. And I'll see you next time in bed with Kate.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yay!